separate views and separate inbox. Alright, another thing to think about as you are configuring your Outlook environment is to possibly decide on whether or not to use multiple profiles within Outlook. And this can be a good way to divide up some of your email accounts. Let's say you've got some email accounts that you use for business, others that you use for personal purposes, and you want to keep things separate, in separate views and separate inboxes and so on. Now, if you have multiple users on the same computer, you probably want to just use the built-in mechanisms within Windows, and that is you can create a user account, and that user account then can be used to open up Outlook. Everybody will be using the same copy of Outlook, but they will be accessing different stores of information. So that generally is all people need to keep things straight. But I want to show you how to set up a different profile. To do this, there's nothing to do within Outlook. This is actually done from within the control panel of the operating system. So whether you're using XP or Vista, the steps will look pretty much the same. I'm using Vista. And one thing you can do is you can just hit the start button on your keyboard or go down to the start button on your taskbar here and then just type in mail. And you should see the control panel application mail. And so there we are. Now this can also be found through the control panel, and I'll show you how to do that. So if I open up the control panel, there it is right there. And if you go to your classic view, and again, the steps are going to be a little bit different in XP, but you should be able to get to this classic view of the control panel. You should see something called Mail, a little application, which also, if you're using Control Panel Home, another nice feature of Vista, if you start typing in Mail, it will find it right there for you. So, however you decide to get there, that's what we're dealing with here. And of course, to set up different profiles, we'll deal with these other two places a little bit later on throughout the tutorial, but for now, we're just going to focus on this profile section at the bottom. So, set up multiple profiles of email accounts and data file. Typically, you only need one, and that's if you're going to dump all of your email into one location. But again, you can kind of separate your personas, your business persona and your work persona. Maybe you want to keep calendar separate. Maybe you certainly want to keep email separate. You can do that with profiles. So, there's Outlook. There's the profile, and that will start automatically. So when you start up the application, you're not prompted for anything because you're always using a particular profile. There will be one profile configured by default, so you can't avoid using a profile. Much like you can't avoid using a profile within the operating system itself. That's just the way it works. So we can certainly add other profiles then by clicking on the Add button, create a new name, Personal. So Brian Personal is the profile. Click on OK, and now you can set up the new email account. So maybe you want to set your internet email accounts a little bit differently, so this is what you would do. So the rest of it is going to look very similar to creating your account for the first time. So what we saw in the previous modules will apply here certainly as well, and I've on purpose created a bad password because I don't want the mail to sync here. But it's trying to establish the network connection, it's going to search for the server settings, and it's going to try to log on to the server. It's going to fail because again I've given the bad password, but you get the idea. So that's what you'll see if you cancel out of this process. So you can create the profile without any email account support, and that's fine, and you can go back and create it later on. So now I've got two profiles created for my Outlook application. So now I'll go back here. There's Outlook. I'll go ahead and launch the program again. And what's happening? We don't really see any changes. What happened to that Brian Personal profile that I just created? Well, here's what happened to it. It's still there. Go back to Mail and open this up once again. Show profiles once again. Now, there's the two, but I didn't change this setting. Always use this profile. Maybe I want to prompt for a profile to be used. So if I do that now and click on OK, and go back and launch the application once again, now I'm prompted for a profile. If I launch the Brian Personal profile, I'm going to get this startup wizard that's going to lead me through, once again, creating the email accounts. It's going to create a PST file. We'll talk about the implications of that later on, but that PST file is where all your data is going to be stored. So again, I'm going to exit out of this wizard, go back, it's going to prompt me. I'm going to start in the Outlook profile and click on OK, and now we're back in business. So that's how you would use profiles with Outlook 2007.